I'm scared, Erin. I get the letter. I'm shaking in my boots. Like, I got financial pressures on me. I'm just, I'm pissed off. I'm mad at the world. And, I don't want to deal with this. My life is not where I planned it to be at this very moment. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do to help me? Like, what does a successful workout look like? I have no money. I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, what does a successful workout look like?
So I think what we try to do, so I'll kind of walk you through the questions that I ask when a borrower calls. Obviously, first thing, I have to tell them that I may be deemed a debt collector, under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So anything they say can be used, against them. It doesn't happen all that often, especially in settlement negotiations. Like, you're not allowed to bring it into court or whatever. But if you lie to me about something, then I can certainly bring that up. So what I try to do is say, okay, what do you want to do with it? Like, what's your plan? Like, what do you want? Do you want to keep the house? Do you feel like you can't afford it and you want out? Like, the end goal for both so the end goal for the bank is always about the money. And I don't mean that in a crappy way. I mean that in they don't want your house way. Okay. Like, they would much rather work it out, whether that be through, you selling it and paying them either a short payoff or a payoff, or, modifying the loan. They'd much rather have the paper and the money than they would ever want a property. They're not property owners. They just don't like to do it. So, and it's never a good scenario for them because they lose money when they foreclose. So it's always, in their best interest to do it. So on the borrower side, it's, what are your circumstances? Like, tell me what's happening. Tell me, what you have. What I'll do is I'll say, our clients will usually require a down payment. So tell me what you have, even if it's $500, like, just tell me what it is, whatever it is, and I will bring it back to them. I have no dog in the fight. I can't make the settlement decision. It ultimately belongs to my client and the borrower to make those decisions, not their attorneys. So every settlement offer that we get under the bar rules for both my side of the fence, the creditor side, and the borrower side, both attorneys have an obligation to remit settlement offers to the other side. So if your attorney is not remitting settlement offers, or the bank's attorney is not communicating settlement offers to their client, it's actually a violation of the bar rules, and it's against our ethical responsibilities. So number one, be heard. You can be heard. You have to be heard by an attorney. Whether that's your attorney. Well, I say that in if an attorney talks to you, they have to hear you and they have to communicate that settlement offer to their client. So what I do is I say, okay, how much money is it? Are you wanting to keep it? You want to get rid of it? Okay, so you want to get rid of it? All right, your options to get rid of it are short sale because the property's underwater, or total payoff because you have equity in your property, or there's no liens underneath, you only have one mortgage and you can't afford the house anymore, you want to deed it back to the bank. Okay, deed in lieu is an option, deed in lieu of foreclosure. So those three are the main liquidation. And by liquidation, I mean the house gets reverted to the bank or sold at auction. Those are kind of your three main categories, right? So those are going to be for people that are just done. They just don't want to fight it anymore, or they just realize that they aren't financially stable, or, somebody passes away and they can't afford it, or somebody passes away and the house is empty, or, there's a million scenarios for why that could happen. But at some point, if they don't want the house, then we'll do the best we can to get them into something that allows them to give it back, if possible, without proceeding through an auction. The other option is a consent to final judgment, which is essentially, I am leaving, I'm not fighting the case, I'm gonna go through and wait until the auction, and then I'm gonna move out, right? So maybe we give them an extended sale date because they just took 6 months off our case because they're not fighting us. So we'll give them, 3 months of a sale date as a good faith, or, whatever the case may be there. So the other option they really have, and obviously it's not on the loss mitigation side, is reaching out to a defense counsel. And there's, a lot of defense counsel in Florida will they'll say, okay, you're going to pay me $500 a month. It's less than your rent payment, and I'll keep you in the house for 2 or 3 years, right? Which technically anybody that delays a litigation, whether that be plaintiff or defendant side, if the litigation is delayed because of the attorney, that's also an ethical violation. So having an attorney tell you that they're going to delay your case, in like with BS arguments or without arguments, basically is running up your fees every month. You're paying $500 a month for that, but you're also running up the bank's fees as they defend against the claims that the attorney's making. And those fees, again, end up in the final judgment if you don't ultimately resolve it. But they will also end up in settlement negotiations. So I had a case a couple days ago that I thought should settle. I felt like we had a good case. I wanted to, the guy was a firefighter, and I wanted to try to help. And, he couldn't get past the fact that prior to the case, he had been offered a $13,000 settlement offer on this $50,000 loan. And post case filing, once we filed suit and he retained an attorney and fought us for months and months, and we ran up $30,000 in fees, that settlement offer is obviously now not $13,000. So now it's more in the $80 or $90 or $100,000 range, because the bank took it at first and just quashed it down even below like the principal balance just to try to settle it, right? And when that didn't happen, we have no choice. We have to foreclose. And if they're going to make us go through this, then, we're going to need more money, because now we're out of pocket $30,000 or 15 or 10 or 5 or whatever that amount is, right? That pre-suit settlement negotiation or that pre-suit offer is never going to be the same. And people get hung up on that. So it's good to know, what you're dealing with when you talk about delaying a case and buying yourself more time, and what those consequences are, which are usually running up of fees. And then the other thing that we do on the modification side, so those are your liquidation options. On the keeping your house, on the retention side, it's going to be reinstatements, which is basically you pay back every penny that you are behind. You come into some money, you're able to borrow some, you get a settlement, or you just work for it, whatever the case may be, that happens, right? You can enter into a repayment plan. They may or may not require a down payment. Repayment plan is basically, I owe $10,000 and I am going to give them a $2,000 down payment, and then I'm going to make 8 payments of $1,000 a month, or whatever the numbers end up being. So it's monthly payments of the back amounts instead of a lump sum. And then you've got the modification, which is, listen, I'm not here to, make a big lump sum payment. I don't have that kind of money. I came into hard times back in the day. I'm better now. I have my job back. I have more income. Here's my income. Can you take everything I owe, put it into the loan, wrap it all into one, capitalize it is what it's called, and then make that a new loan, a new principal balance for the borrowers. And what happens is they basically re-amortize a loan. It's basically a new loan with an old debt is the basic gist of it. But again, it does add money. So your $50,000 loan that you took out in 2006 and then you stopped paying in 2009 might now be $150,000. And that's the I guess the catch-22. Do you fix it early, or do you buy your time and then fix it at more expensive amounts later?
Absolutely. So you said some things that I really want to highlight, and I really want people to understand. The first thing, Erin reiterated what I always like to say, is you need to make a decision. Are you going to keep your house, or are you going to let it go? That decision needs to be made, and then you can know how to move forward. That was the first thing. The second thing you said is the longer the foreclosure process takes, the less negotiable the bank becomes. Right. And I think homeowners really need to understand this, because if a bank's willing to take a loss on your loan for settling early, once the process is extended and delayed, and they have a lot more energy, effort, time, legal expenses, and everything into the case, that settlement offer does not stay the same. It changes. It changes. And also market conditions don't stay the same. If they start this process 2 years ago and the market is, at one point, and 2 years later, now the market is up or down, a lot of different variables change. And so you have to understand that it's better to find a resolution sooner than it is to wait and delay until later. If you found value in today's episode, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, tell a friend, or you can check us out at the Foreclosure Fix Podcast.com. I'm your host, DJ Olojo. Thank you so much for listening in. God bless you, and I love you. Welcome to the family. The views and opinions on this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. If you have a specific legal question, we highly recommend you contact a qualified legal professional.